Hi, and welcome to week 3 of Publicity Workshop. So again, we're going to take a moment to check in. I hope the semester has started really well for you, not only in this course, but in all of the courses that you are engaged in this semester, and that you're getting more and more excited about the sector of public relations and publicity as perhaps a route that you might want to take. A reminder of Tell Me a Story, noticing new ideas, new thoughts. Remember, you can post anything that you see or anything that you think will be of interest to your classmates in the Ask Your Instructor discussion forum. I will notice it there and I can send it out to all of your team, but also know that anything you post in Ask Your Instructor discussion forum, all of your team can see. So, looking forward to new ideas, new thoughts, new ads, new campaigns, new pop-up events, new store experiences. Think of this as really kind of, that initial time when you, before we go into curriculum, when you think about the world around you and your recent experiences. In our shell, I have put another video, the Dictionary of Body Language, What Everybody is Saying. And this is a different way of looking at body language. This is literally Joe Navarro's experience in law enforcement and really watching body language for what it tells us, the nuances of body language. So this is, sort of layering on to the video we discussed last week, but also talks about how you can look at your audience and sort of the challenges we have in a digital format to really communicate and tell our story in an expressive way when many times it's a text or a tweet or an email. So let's start by introducing our first assignment, becoming a pioneer publicist. Now, I know you don't sit around and talk to your friends about the word pioneer or being a pioneer, but let me just say, one of the reasons that I refer to you as pioneer publicist is, the word pioneer really was used and began being used more than 100 years ago, when the world, especially in this country, was just new and developing, right? What I want you to think about is how the 21st century is sort of new and developing all over again. How as a publicist or as a marketer, you're going to be experiencing and witnessing, hourly, daily, weekly, things that your parents never experienced, your grandparents never experienced, and their parents never experienced. So there is a sense of being a pioneer. We focus our first assignment on Nellie Bly, who at 23 years old became the world's first pioneer investigative reporter. All of this is in your Blackboard shell. Under assignments, you'll see the due date. You'll see more details about the assignment. Again, you want to, read this closely and focus on your chosen brand. Now, for every assignment, there's 3 assignments and they build on each other. And you'll see that as we go along throughout the semester. So I want you to take a minute after you watch this video to connect with your team and to brainstorm your different aspects of your brand. Make sure that there's no make sure that there's no duplicates. Make sure that you're still interested in the aspect of your brand that you originally thought you would be. And I'll give you an example. Let's say my brand has selected Fenty. Well, as an individual, I want to, one team member may look at her foundation, one team member may look at Fenty Beauty, one team member may look at Fenty Fashion, and one team member may look at Rihanna. That would be a great way of delivering and telling us a story of the Fenty brand. That's what I mean. Now, when you present as a team, you'll be presenting your response to assignment 1, assignment 2, and assignment 3 as a team, but each of you will do individual work on either her foundation, her beauty, fashion, or the founder herself. All individual assignments this semester will use your chosen brand as your client and focus. So, we talk a lot about storytelling, and I keep encouraging you to, tell your story so well. Marketers have become the new master storytellers. The image here, if any of you watched a series a while ago of Mad Men, it really highlighted the explosion of marketing and public relations in the 1950s and 60s in this country. When that was aligned with an explosion in commerce, an explosion in homes, an explosion in the suburbs, explosions of families. Like, there was a lot happening in this country where marketers really tapped into a new way of crafting and framing the industry we now know as marketing and advertising. I put a clip in our shell of one of my favorite scenes from this series, where Don, the lead that you see here, pitches the Kodak Carousel. You probably don't know what a Kodak Carousel is, but you'll see it as he goes through his pitch. But that's why I include this clip, is it's about storytelling. It's about touching emotions and making people see things the way you see things. Another thing that I wanted to sort of bring to your attention, now coming to the 21st century, is AI. So the image here you see is the world's first AI virtual news anchor. So how can AI become the new storytellers? So to sort of tease you a little bit, I've included also in our shell this clip of the English AI's first presentation, and you'll see in this clip where not only are they is the AI enhanced newscaster presenting the news, but is also acknowledging who they are, acknowledging that they're learning, and what it means by that is that AI is learning. So very, very interesting. We have to be, again, very relevant to our audience, our society, and technological innovation. So let's start. So what we're going to talk about today a lot is sort of this bombardment of white noise and really trying to empathetically walk in the shoes of our audience. There's so many brands and so many people wanting, a little bit of us. They want our time. They want our money. They want us to come to their store. They want us to buy their product. Come to my website. Look at this new innovation. And it's becoming so stressful for people, including yourself as a consumer, that we've learned the fine art of delete. It's either delete, click, out, X, however you want to say it. We do that in nanoseconds. Again, 3 to 4 seconds. Not interesting? Click. Not relevant to me? Click. Taking too long to load? Click. I'm not shopping for this product category right now? Click. Right? So when we look at this audience information overload, we look at, just a slew of categories where information can come, right? Everything from word of mouth to personal selling to direct marketing. So let's look at the objectives for this week. We want to report the challenges to publishing effective news releases, examine the importance of news releases over advertisements, review the process of planning for news releases, review the 7 basic components of a news release, and describe the different news release formats. This is really important. Again, this is in your text from this week, but it's also very important to stay focused because these need to be components of your submissions. So Let's start with the challenges to publishing an effective press release. Now, I would suggest to you that I just change the word from press to news. Press releases, that phrase really came about when the publicist or the marketer was connecting with the printed word, like a printed newspaper, a printed publication. It went to press, in other words. What we're talking about now in the 21st century is really a digital platform. So it's about news. And some of it might be printed, some of it might be spoken, some of it might be digital, some of it might be a video. It takes on different forms. So what I'm going to refer to this now is as a news release. So let's look at the world's first press release. Because again, this is before the digital age. In 1906. And what's interesting about this is that this is about not the news channel reporting on an event. This is really about the Pennsylvania Railroad, which had an accident, using their PR agency to frame the event for their audience. And here's an example of that press release. Now, when we look going forward, and this is, keep these in mind as we start to build on, the format a press release can take. This is the first hip-hop press release in April of 1981. It actually came, the press release was written in a very press release traditional format from the PR agency, but it actually came with a can of spray paint. And the kickoff event actually encouraged the invited audience to start tagging the room. So we look at the backbone of publicity programs, the importance of a news release and publicity plan, components of an outstanding news release. Again, not everyone is a great writer, but it is one way that we can share information and tell our story. So our goal here is to, either by practicing, by, talking to great writers, by using our writing and speaking studio here at FIT, is that we get better and better at really telling a story that engages an audience. Because remember, this isn't just, this isn't about writing a fiction book. This is about writing a press release or a news release that engages your audience to a point where they take action, where they change their mind, where they start a conversation, right? So it has a lot of intensity and power. The value of news releases, it's about its importance. It's very important, and it's one way of connecting intimately with the brand's audience. Impact over media. It's a major source for journalists and bloggers, and we're going to talk about this in the weeks to come. This is where that symbiotic relationship starts to happen between people who actually are the gatekeepers of different news channels, which are the news channels that your audience taps into, right? And there's thousands, right? And them coming to you or taking your call or reading your email or reading your news release because you start to build a credibility and a legacy of someone who brings real value to them and to their audience on how you see the world. The process of planning a news release, let's look at that. So use a worksheet to answer basic questions, meaning, you don't start out by just sort of writing. This isn't a fiction book. You're just not sort of writing and telling your story. You want to really be specific at first to start to say, like, who's the subject? Who's the audience? What are my objectives? What's my one key message? And there's many style books that can help you with that, the most popular being the Associated Press. What are the 5 W's and the 1 H? Well, you can imagine it's who, what, where, why, how. But I would suggest that you add 2 more questions there. So what and who cares? Meaning, if your press release, if your news release is not relevant for numerous reasons, time, content, wrong audience, wrong news channel, whatever it is. So what? Who cares? So your goal, again, is you're not writing a fiction book, a novel that someone will buy through Amazon. You are crafting a message. You are telling a story, potentially, that engages an audience to take action, whether it's a physical action, a mental action, or an emotional action. The 7 basic components of a news release, let's look at those. So one is a news release template. And this is clearly outlined in your text, and it's what I'll be looking for with your submissions, right? And you know, I won't go through it here, but you know, it's clearly outlined in how you structure it. As an aside, you know, there's, like the image shows, you know, depending on the news that you're going to tell, you might actually connect with your news channel before the event is actually made public, so that once the event is made public, they have all the information they need and they release the news, right? And that's about building relationships, saying, here's something that we're going to announce tomorrow, but don't tell your audience yet. But I want to make sure I've answered all your questions and I've given you everything that you need, so that when we make the statement, it goes into social media and on the digital and printed news efforts immediately. News release headlines. One of the hardest things for a publicist to do. And here's just a joke headline that I found. Headless body and topless bar. You know, it's provocative, it's funny, and I'm not saying your headlines need to be like this, but your headlines need to be clear and engaging, not hype, you know, and not kind of so stoic and static because it's filled with facts. You know, I'm suggesting 10 words or less. It's the boldest font. It's the most important point size. You know, whatever your ultimate format, whatever format you choose for your news release, depending on the channel, it's the thing that's going to stop your audience in their tracks, your news channel gatekeeper. News release date, make sure you include that. Again, the format's clearly outlined in your book. I'll be looking for that. News release lead, again, this is your lead paragraph, 2 to 3 sentences. And again, most people have only time to read 2 to 3 sentences. So this is super, super important. This is you know, going to make the difference of whether or not your news channel picks it up or not. Body of the text, you know, think about it like an inverted pyramid structure, right? So if the editor or reporter doesn't find something interesting in the first few lines, you know, they will find things later on in the news release. So you want to make sure you sort of capture them and then give them a little more information again, and you'll see part of the release is always your contact information. Boilerplate descriptions, these aren't really something you write. This is something that your brand has. This will appear on every news release, and it talks a little bit about the brand. Just to remind the receiver, you know, a few accents or data points about the brand. It could be the market position. It could be the mission or vision statement. It could be the number of people, the size of the yearly revenue, where you're located. You know, it's crafted in a way, and again, it's marketing as well, but it's crafted in a way that tells the brand story in a few sentences to a very general, wide audience. News release contacts, super important. Not only is it your name, your position, your number, but you have to take the call. You have to respond to the email. Like this is very important. It's, you know, if there are other people within your firm that are dedicated to this specific news event, you can also include their names depending on what the audience or what the receiver wants to ask. Right? Maybe there's a pop-up event, contact this person. Regarding this news release, contact this person. You know, you can do that, or you can have one person that answers and and receives all the questions. What you don't want to do is frustrate the news channels or the bloggers by saying, I'll get back to you with that information. Let me call this person. They're on vacation. Like, you can start delaying. That will not only make the news not relevant, but it affects and tarnishes your legacy as a publicist. The different news release formats. So you're going to see in the book, and it's outlined quite well. And again, the book is great because it tells you kind of the foundation of public relations, right? So it outlines the traditional news release. It outlines the online news release. It outlines the multimedia news release, which is probably where many of you will live because you live in a world of multimedia. There's also other news release formats that it will talk about. And again, I show you our friend, the AI newscaster here, because, what would be relevant here? What kind of, how would you frame a story that an AI newscaster is telling? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges? Could it be a little different in your format and structure? Now, understanding you need to have the basics, the headline, the lead, your contact information, the boilerplate. You need to have the basics because the receiver will need all that. But how you structure and format it, the book will, outline that quite well, so you can start to build your structure. So if you have any questions on this, again, connect with your teammates first. If you're still not happy with those responses, reach out to me. Remember to read your text and to do your weekly quizzes. Remember, some weeks have one quiz, some weeks have two quizzes. It's usually aligned with weeks that have more than one chapter to read, and that's clearly outlined on our syllabus. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week.